Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on this edition of the English Newscast on Camdis Television for this Thursday, August 12, 2021. Let's begin this edition of the news with our bullet points. Heavy downpour in Douala has left at least 3 dead in a landslide at the Sheferi Bidimi vicinity in the PK13 neighborhood. Cameroon has joined the rest of the globe this Thursday, August 12, to celebrate the International Youth Day with a call for the youth to continue fighting against malaria and malnutrition. The tussle between the Football Federation of Cameroon and the Professional League has caused CAS to take side with the Football Federation. These and more will be yours in this edition of the news. Stay tuned. As you heard in one of our late stories, 3 persons are feared dead in the littoral region following a landslide that occurred at the Bidimi vicinity in the PK13 neighborhood in Douala, littoral region of Cameroon. The landslide occurred on the night of Thursday following heavy downpours that started from Wednesday night at about 3 a.m. The following report has an in-depth of this story. The population of some neighborhoods in Cameroon's economic capital Douala, including Mekepe, Mesoke, Sable, and PK13, woke up this morning with their feet in water. These neighborhoods flooded following a ceaseless rainfall that hit the town since Wednesday at about 3 a.m. and ended this Thursday, August 12, 2021. Report says at the Sheferi Bidimo vicinity in the PK13 neighborhood, at least 3 people were buried in the landslide that resulted from the ceaseless rainfall. Local authorities are yet to issue a statement on the incident. In the meantime, victims of the flood have been battling to put away the water since morning. Report from Gariwa says the town was equally hit by flood following heavy rainfall yesterday. Earlier this month, the National Observations on Climate Change had announced heavy precipitations with high risk of flooding, especially in the northern parts of the country for this month of August. Floods nationwide has been rampant in the past years, destroying properties and claiming lives. Still onto one of our late stories, transforming food system, youth innovation for human and planetary system or planetary health is the theme of this year's International Youth Day that was celebrated this Thursday, August 12, at the Reunification Monument in the nation's capital city, Yaoundé, chaired by the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Monona Fotso. During the week, participations were on training, capacity building, and the fight against malaria and malnutrition. Our reporter Ruth Fonyong in the following report says it was a week for capacity building. Her report.
Young people are on the front lines of the struggle to build a better future for all. The reason why the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education encourages the young people for their creativity and dynamism.
When we see those young people deploying their activities along the week of celebration, it shows the creativity and dynamism of Cameroonian youth. So we are satisfied and assured that the Cameroonian youth is capable of transforming food system here in Cameroon to improve the human health and even protect our planet.
Transforming food systems with innovation for human and planetary health highlights the success of such a global effort, which will not be achieved without the meaningful participation of young people.
You have seen they are assembled here in the Reunification Monument to show that creativity and in all domains. So we are satisfied of that deployment of youth activities under the leadership of the Cameroon National Youth Council.
Throughout the week, youth of the CMAC zone have been trained on capacity building and on the fight against malnutrition.
The proportion of the population suffering from hunger fell from 40.7% to 10.6% between the year 2000 and 2015. In addition, we have made significant progress in the fight against malnutrition, as the prevalence of stunting has declined from 40% to 23% between 1990 and 2015.
The commemoration of the 22nd edition of the International Youth Day was graced with dance competitions and the election of the year's Miss.
These abilities are of different capacities. While some are visible, some can never be identified from afar. These are the words of the Director of Social Protection for the Disabled and Elderly, Ambe Ne Angelina B. Mundi. Let's take a listen to her speaking on the microphone of Black Elomo.
In Cameroon, to be officially known like somebody living with a disability, we know there are disabilities that are visible, some are not visible. If you see somebody who is deaf, you can't decipher from the person's physical look. Even a blind person from a distance, you hardly know except this person has the white cane. Somebody who is mentally disabled, you cannot tell from the physical outlook. So we have disabilities that are visible, like those who are physically challenged. If you see somebody on a wheelchair, obviously that person is disabled, it's lame or crippled. If you see somebody moving with crutches, you know that person is disabled. And it's a big problem because like last year's theme on the day of the celebration of persons with disabilities, the theme of last year was not all disabilities are visible. And this brings us to the reason why there are deficiencies that we don't see, but they exist. And in Cameroon now, officially, there is a national disability card for persons living with disabilities, such that the holder of this card, if it's somebody who is deaf and has this disability card, you know the disability has been attested by a competent medical doctor. And the disability card now is like to testify that truly this person has a disability. And for this disability to be attested with the national disability or invalidity card, you must be above 45% disabled. That is, only persons living with disabilities whose disability has been attested by a medical doctor, issued a special medical certificate, and then the Ministry of Social Affairs issues this person a disability card. That is what is officially recognized. And you must have a disability of 45% or 50% disability.
The electoral campaign to renew the basic organs of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Livestock and Animal Husbandry has begun this Thursday, August 12, 2021. In prelude to the election, about 20 lists from the 10 regions of Cameroon have been selected. During a press briefing this Thursday, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development presented the conditions and the context of this election. He says it will have to bring up responsible, conscious, and people who are aware of the realities of the rural world. Let's take a listen to an excerpt of the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Gabriel Bairobe, carefully selected for us by Ruth Fonyo.
4 months ago, we met on the occasion of the joint ceremony of the first session of the National Electoral Commission to officially launch electoral operations at CAPEF and the national workshop on the apprehension, capacity building, and sensitization of members of Regional Electoral Commission, members of electoral operations. Ladies and gentlemen, the electoral register currently has about 275,000 registered voters, 77% of whom are men and 23% women, unevenly distributed among the 4 sections throughout the national territory as follows: Adamawa, 10,959 with 8.5% women. Center, 32,098 with 22.5% women. East, 18,612 with 8.2% women. Far North, 37,831 with 17.2% women. Littoral, 21,518 with 26.1 women. North, 30,187 with 11% women. Northwest, 27,412 with 38.6 women. West, 35,754 with 30% women. South, 22,789 with 29.5% women. Southwest, 37,212 with 26.8 women. Statistical analysis reveals that the agriculture section has the largest share of registration with 90.5% against 8.1% for livestock, 0.8% for fishery, and 0.8% for forestry and wildlife.
The Minister of Transport, Jean-Ernest Masena Ngale-Bibehe, has called on the stakeholders of the interurban transport agencies to make sure that all buses have seatbelts. This is to reduce the consequences in case of road accidents. This is among one of the resolutions arrived at during our crisis meeting held with stakeholders of the interurban travel agencies. The following report says it is equally aimed at reducing the recurrent road accidents in Cameroon. Take a listen.
The measure is one among many rolled out by the transport boss Jean-Ernest Ngale-Masena-Bibehe recently during a crisis meeting with stakeholders in the transport sector on the heels of 3 different road accidents that occurred in less than 24 hours in the central region, claiming over 40 lives. The degree of irresponsibility is what we see in the transport sector nowadays. Owners of transport agencies have lost control over their drivers as some of these drivers take tramadol to have energy. These were part of the opening statements of the Minister Jean-Ernest Ngale-Masena-Bibehe, who outlined a number of measures taken to limit the occurrences of road accidents in the country and in the central region in particular. Apart from demanding that seatbelts should be made available in all interurban transport buses, Transport Minister Jean-Ernest Ngale-Masena-Bibehe also instructed henceforth chiefs of agencies will mention the hours of departure and arrival on the respective sites on the traveling ticket in order to determine the exact duration of the journey. This is to make sure that the prescribed hours on the roads are respected. The minister equally requested the list of all drivers, photocopies of their driver's license, as well as all photocopies of registration cards of all vehicles. Added to that, promoters will henceforth systematically transmit for all applications meant for approval photocopies of their driver's licenses their affiliations to the National Social Insurance Fund, and the list of vehicles concerned. Road accidents involving passengers buses are very common in Cameroon. In last January, the deadliest of all since the 2021 began occurred in the West region. At least 53 people perished in a collision between a bus and a van carrying fuel. Many have thus expressed optimism with the new measures put in place by the government to limit road accidents and call for its effectiveness.
If you're just joining us, you're watching the 6 p.m. newscast on Camden's television in the English language. In sport, the arbitral tribunal spokesman has taken side with the Cameroon Football Federation Fcfa over the 4th November 2020 decision. CAS has ordered the professional league to pay the sum of 5,000 Swiss francs, worth over 3,029,271 CFA francs as fine. The president of the professional league, General Pierre Semenge, has issued a release this Thursday, August 12, against the decision of the court and is ready to appeal. The following report has an in-depth of this story.
The Professional League of Cameroon sent a press release this Thursday, August 12, to challenge the decision of the arbitral tribunal sportsman who confirmed the decision of November 4, 2020, taken by the Cameroonian Football Federation, Fcfa. General Pierre Semenge intends to appeal. He evokes many other things. The vagueness surrounding the election of the Executive Bureau of Fcfa, taking into account the dubious legal situation of Fcfa executive election on December 12, 2018, and whose election was annulled by CAS on January 15, 2021. An appeal will be launched with the Swiss Federal Court within possible deadline. The Professional Football League has just suffered another setback. The Sports Arbitral Tribunal TAS ruling in Lausanne.
And now we take you out of the country to say that Audrey Rogelina has sacked all ministers in Madagascar with the pretext that their performances are below standard. About 21 prosecutors have been arrested in the said country, including 12 military personnel in connection to the assassination of the president recently. The following report has an in-depth of this story plus other recurrent happenings in Africa, compiled for us by Ruth Fonyam.
Madagascar President Andry Rajoelina has sacked all his ministers days after he criticized some of their performances as below expectation, and weeks after officials said they had thwarted a plot to kill the former coup leader. Rajoelina's office gave no reason for the dismissals in the statement issued late on Wednesday, August 11, 2021. Last week, a senior prosecutor said Madagascar had arrested 21 more suspects, including 12 military personnel, in connection with a plot to kill Rajoelina and topple the government. Madagascar, an impoverished former French colony of 26 million, has a history of political violence and instability. Rajoelina, 44, was sworn in as president in 2019 after a hotly contested election and a constitutional court challenge from his rival. More arrests in Madagascar in connection with plots to kill president. Madagascar arrested 2 French citizens, several others over failed plot to kill the president. The French government on Wednesday urged better protection of vaccination centers after some 24 acts of vandalism were recorded against COVID-19 related facilities over the last month alone. The warning comes after high tensions over recent weeks as tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets to rally against President Emmanuel Macron's health pass policy, which aims to encourage vaccination. According to the Interior Minister, some 22 acts of vandalism against testing and vaccination centers as well as pharmacies have been recorded since July 12 alone. Almost 60 threats have also been recorded. The health pass, which is need to enter a cafe or restaurant and also to travel on an inner city train, is generated in a QR code either by a full course of vaccination, a recent negative virus test, or a recovery from COVID-19. France plans rollout of COVID-19 vaccine booster shots, but only for the vulnerable. Tens of thousands march against French COVID health pass for third straight weekend. 15 people have been killed in an attack in western Niger less than 2 weeks after 33 people were killed by suspected jihadists in the same area. The Interior Minister said in a statement the latest attack was carried out on Monday by unidentified armed individuals who targeted people walking in a field in the Banibangu region close to the Mali border. 2 attacks blamed on jihadists at the end of July left 33 people dead and prompted the Interior Ministry to promise tougher security measures in the region and to bring the killers to justice. The authorities have made similar promises in the past, but the deadly attacks have continued, often carried out by gunmen on motorbikes who flee into Mali after their raid. Some 1,200 Chadian soldiers are deployed in the 3 borders region as part of a multinational force put together by the G5 Sahel group, which comprises Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger.
That international roundup takes us to the end of this edition of the news. But before we part companies, we remind you of our major stories. Heavy downpour in Douala has left at least 3 people dead at the Sheferi Bidimi vicinity in the PK13 neighborhood. Cameroon has joined the rest of the globe this Thursday, August 12, to celebrate the International Youth Day with the call for youths to continue fighting against malaria and malnutrition. The tussle between the Football Federation of Cameroon and the Professional League has caused CAS to take side with the Football Federation Fcfa. And it is here that the curtain draws for this edition of the news in the English language. Meet Jean-Jacques Zay at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. I'll be with you tomorrow at 6 p.m. for another edition of the news. Do have a wonderful evening in the company of our programs. Good evening.